Hi everyone, welcome to Curriculum and Planning. My name is Dr. William Kearns. I'm going to be your professor for the course. Right now I'd like to give you a brief little overview of what to expect. We're going to do a lot of reading, we're going to do a lot of writing, we're going to get heavily into lesson design, objectives, assessments, and how to plan a curriculum unit of instruction. So first of all, as we talk about our course description, I won't go too far into that because you guys can read the syllabus for yourself. The key thing I want to focus on is what to expect. Again, you will create integrated lesson plans. We'll tie the lesson plans in together with connected themes for a 1-week unit of instruction during this course. So basically what I mean by unit of instruction, to put it as simply as possible, is that it is 5 lesson plans connected by an overarching theme. So the one lesson plan is connected to the other Monday through Friday. That's basically a 1-week unit. We'll have texts. Now, I realize that those of you in this course may have various majors. Some of you are English majors, some of you may be science majors, so on and so forth. You can design your unit of instruction so that it is fit for your subject area. Science majors, science education majors, you can design a science unit of instruction. If you are a math education major, you can design it after math. The one thing that I want is I want you to integrate the language arts into your unit of instruction. That means reading, writing, viewing, listening, speaking, and visually representing. The language arts can be integrated into any subject area. In fact, students who are learning science, for instance, learn science more effectively and in a more lasting manner if they are integrating the language arts in with the sciences, if they're making visual representations, if they're combining listening with speaking, if they're viewing things in multimodal ways. That's one reason why I have chosen 2 textbooks for this course. One of them is an English textbook. I'm not doing that, even though I know that when you guys first look at the bookstore, you might have thought this. I'm not doing that thinking that I'm gearing this just for English majors, although English majors will benefit. I'm doing that for the benefit of everyone because I believe that language arts benefits everyone in a multidisciplinary fashion. We'll design our units of instruction so that you are preparing your students to be involved in inquiry and to communicate effectively. We'll learn how to use multimedia in this digital age. I think that's very important. It was already important in the 21st century to begin with. It's even more important, of course, in this COVID-19 era. We'll look into how to integrate your units of instruction with, of course, the Arkansas state standards. You can see, of course, the standards of content knowledge, assessment, planning of instruction, instructional strategies. These are all going to be critical to this course. By the end of this course, I want you to have an understanding of curriculum planning, of teaching delivery, the Arkansas state standards, what it means to be a professional teacher, what it means to be involved effectively in assessment and disciplinary literacy. You can see our 2 courses. The rigorous curriculum design, Ainsworth and Donovan, that's cross-content area. It gets you well into Bloom's taxonomy and connection of lesson planning as well as curriculum design into state standards. The Smagorinsky text, even though it's English, I think it will benefit all of you. It will get you into how to integrate the language arts, again, viewing, speaking, listening, visually representing, writing, how to represent the English language arts in a multidisciplinary way into your curriculum. I very much want you guys to design curriculum, no matter what your subject area, that is multimodal, allows students to be involved in multiple forms of expression and communication, as well as multiple forms of learning. So again, you've got your input, learning, you've got your output, that's expression, but there are multiple ways of doing that. Studying the language arts will help you no matter what subject area you teach to allow students to both learn as well as communicate in multimodal, diverse ways, which is so important. You can see the recommended texts here. Now, the recommended texts, I'm not requiring you to purchase them. They will help you. I will draw upon them as we get further into this course. So if you do get into these books that I've recommended, it would benefit you, and you'll spot, ooh, I see where Dr. Kearns is drawing on Moore or on Lewis at times. And there'll be other books that I draw upon as well. But this gives you an idea. And these are just simply ones that I recommend to you. There are other books too, but the two books that I have earlier, those are the ones I want you to purchase, the Smagorinsky and the Ainsworth books. We'll have various assignments, evaluation, and that's what I want to get into right now. I'm just going over the syllabus real quickly because honestly, I believe that you guys are capable, of course, of reading the syllabus on your own, but it does help you to have me make this video as well. I'm going to attach the link of the video on the top of the syllabus. Okay, so your unit rationale, that's going to be worth 100 points. With the unit rationale, I want you to basically tell me what are you going to be doing this unit. That's called an overview. What are your goals? Why will the students benefit from this? What are their learning goals and what materials are needed? I'm going to give you a checklist. So if you write persuasively according to this checklist of what's supposed to be in your unit rationale, you'll do fine. I'm also going to give you examples of unit rationales that have been written by past students of mine. That's going to help you as well. I've used this in multiple universities, not just University of Arkansas Little Rock, but also when I taught at Clemson and when I got my PhD at Clemson University. And so you'll see some examples of past unit of rationale from there too. One of the professors whose books I draw upon, Peter Smagorinsky, he's actually one of my mentors in many ways. I'm going to give you a link to where he puts units of instruction up on his link, and you'll be able to see examples of units of rationale that his students have done as well over the years with this type of curriculum planning. I'm a strong believer that you guys need a mentor text, so that's an example of good, strong quality work that you can build upon. So do your students. So please study what I'm going to present to you here in the syllabus as well as on Blackboard, but also study the examples of past work to give you an idea of what to do. And you can see you can have a chance to turn in the rough draft as well as your overall work at the end of the course. We're going to do the conceptual unit. Our conceptual unit, of course, is basically the 5 lesson plans tied together with an overarching theme. So you'll look at key concepts, the strategies that students will use, visual aids that the students will draw upon, possibly games that students will be playing. You'll have a rough draft to turn in as well as a final performance at the end of this course for the conceptual unit. And they'll include assessments. The assessments will be built into this. Obviously, I know that this course is not tied in with field experiences, so I want you to create assessments, but you will not actually be applying the assessments, but I do want you to study how you would assess student learning if you were actually teaching students. You'll have chapter reviews. Your chapter reviews won't be due every week because otherwise I could possibly overload you. But we'll have a mix of chapter reviews as well as discussion board responses. When you are reviewing the chapters, these don't have to be overly long, maybe a page or two of length, double space. What implications can you draw upon from the chapters, as well as our class discussion and materials to inform your understanding of reading instruction as well as disciplinary instruction in your content area to plan instruction. Your discussion board responses, I want you to talk about basically how can you again relate your material to your unit and to how you want to conduct yourself as a teacher. The chapter reviews will be 50 points each. Discussion board responses will be 20 points each. We will have a final exam that's going to be an essay. It's not going to be multiple choice. And it's going to be very much application based. I will give you the final exam no less than 1 week in advance to work on it from home, this being an online course. And you can see it's going to be based upon your understanding of teaching strategies, your understanding of good, effective teaching methods, as well as your studying of the Arkansas state standards, the Arkansas curriculum frameworks. I want you to study those. You can see some links on here. I want you to study the conceptual unit libraries that are linked right below when we get into our units of instruction, as well as examples of past units that my students have created too. That's going to be very helpful to you as you produce these units. Whether you ever get into producing these actual type of units yourself when you are a working teacher, I'm a strong believer that if you study unit design and grid strong unit design like you will in this course, it will help you to know how to plan ahead when you are a teacher. I don't want you to be the type of teacher that goes from one day to the next, not sure what you'll do on Tuesday when it's a Monday. I want you to be the type of teacher that plans your instruction 6 weeks, 8 weeks, a month in advance, but you're also able to effectively make adjustments as you go based upon the needs and interests and learning gains of your students in your class. You can see the grading scale here. It's the standard grading scale of Arkansas Little Rock, and key dates in this class. Again, we start August 24th. Last day to drop the individual class is October 19th. Last day of class is December 7th. Final exams are December 8th through 16th. That means that your final exam in this course is in that range. My grades are due to be submitted on December 18th at noon. That means I really want all work turned in if you run late and you have extenuating circumstances. I'm aware that we're in the middle of a pandemic, of course. Don't turn anything into me after December 16th. That way I have a chance to grade everything, of course. Ideally, please don't be one of those students that's turning in things at the last minute. I do have due dates on here. My policy on due dates is this, and you'll see it written down, that I dock you 10% if you are turning in late on an assignment, if you are turning in late work without my prior permission. That's not going to kill your grade because I understand that things happen. If you don't want me to take away from your grade, then just give me advance, or maybe if it was something that happened that you couldn't give me advance warning, just give me an email. Let me know what's going on. I'm likely to be understanding. This being a COVID-19 era, there's a very strong likelihood that I will be understanding if you need me to be understanding about something that's going on that affects you on deadlines. Okay, so here we go into due dates. I want you to know what we're doing in this course. A strong piece of advice. If you reach the due dates and you don't run behind, you will be able to make it through this course. I recommend combining the readings of the two books in order as I have linked them. That way the readings make sense to you. I also do recommend working ahead. I do not recommend falling behind. If you fall behind and it gets to be November and you're trying to catch up after you've fallen behind, you might find yourself in a situation where you're very mad at me because it might feel to you as if you're in an impossible situation. Because if you're falling behind and you're trying to make up for past, let's say, chapter reflections, while you're trying to complete the 5 lesson plans, while you're trying to complete the assessments, while you're trying to do the reflections on these lessons, you're going to find yourself in a situation in late November where it might be very, very hard to catch up. At best, you might wind up with a B or a C in that situation. At worst, you might wind up with an incomplete. You don't want to find yourself in that situation because trying to make up if you fall behind in late November might be difficult. It would be a good idea if you're able to work ahead. For instance, you'll notice that I don't have anything due during the first week of class other than our basic discussion board post, get to know you type activity. That's very much purposeful. I'm imagining that many of you guys are needing to purchase the textbook. Uh, and if you have it shipped to you, it might take a little bit of time to get it. Obviously, if you purchase it through Kindle, then obviously you have it immediately. Um, Now, how you handle that is completely up to you. Um, but I'm giving you time when it comes to that. That's why I don't have anything due during the first week. But it would be a good idea to work ahead. That way, you can actually start working ahead on the unit of instruction and the lesson planning and so forth. Maybe a little bit ahead of time in front of the due dates. I do accept work early without any kind of issue when it comes to that. I'm going to set up this course on Blackboard so that you can turn in work early if you choose easily. It'll just be a matter of clicking on the item in the Blackboard and turning it in, where I'm going to give you a space to turn it in. I'm not going to be one of those professors where you have to wait until the week of the class to see material and you don't know what's coming until that week. You're going to be able to plan ahead for this course ahead of time. You're going to see material ahead of the time. That way, if you know that something might come up in your life, let's say, especially COVID-19, know that you have a family situation coming up, illness or whatever, or you're worried that you might fall behind and you want to get ahead a little bit just in case something happens. I can picture that. I'm going to make it so that it is possible to work ahead of time. It's not going to necessarily be possible to finish the course 5-6 weeks ahead of time. I'm not wild about that situation anyway, because I will have work that I'll add, a supplemental material that I'll add even as we go through the course. But the material ahead of time that's due, you'll be able to work on it. And of course, the final exam, that part you won't so much be able to do ahead of time, because I'm not going to post the final exam until about a week or two before it's due. Okay, so all assignments are going to be due Friday at midnight. About class meetings, by the way, I'm going to send you an email asking you what time is best for you guys to meet. And I'm going to give you a space, Monday in the afternoon or Monday evening, then another space Tuesday afternoon or Tuesday evening, Wednesday afternoon or Wednesday evening, Thursday afternoon or Thursday evening, for afternoon or Friday evening. I would preferably like us to meet once a week as a class. The day of the week will be based upon what the maximum number of students say is the most convenient time for you to meet. Just simply tell me, for instance, in which those slots, tell me if you are available or if you are unavailable during those times. And you'll see the form when I email it to you. If I see days of the week and times when you are likely going to be unavailable, then I'll try to avoid those for class meetings. If I see times where the majority of students are going to be available, that's going to be more likely the time that I'm going to have class. I realize that as you were signing up for courses, you were not able to see X class meets at X time, and so I want to be flexible based upon your schedules. Now, for that reason, when it comes to counting attendance, for attendance purposes, if you are turning in your work during that week, or if you're meeting with me, or just simply in dialogue with me that week, even if it's electronically, I'm going to count you as present for attendance purposes. I'm not going to try to ding you when it comes to attendance like that. And in fact, I'm aware that there are probably going to be times when I call for an online meeting of the course. Again, you teachers are in professional development meetings. I know that they're sick of hearing the terms asynchronous versus synchronous. Asynchronous means, of course, something like this, where I send out a video, I put class material up there, and you can work on it anytime you want. Synchronous means, of course, live. Um, there will be times when I call for a synchronous, a live class meeting, a virtual class meeting, and one or two of you, or maybe more than one or two of you, might not be able to make it because of work obligations or family obligations or whatever. I'm not going to count it against you. I'm not going to count you absent so long as you're in touch with me. And I'm aware that that sort of thing happens. Um, I plan to record the class sessions and post them for you if you miss them. Hopefully nothing goes wrong with the class sessions. So that's the way I'm going to handle that. There will be some weeks possibly when we might not have a class session. And in fact, if I know the class is rolling along smoothly, that's when I might find myself skipping a week. But for the most part, this being an undergrad class, especially, I teach undergrad as well as graduate here at University of Arkansas Little Rock. Undergraduates need a little bit more communication than graduate students do for the most part. And so I would prefer to have weekly synchronous sessions where you're available to have a little bit of dialogue and a little bit of communication with me. Hopefully that works out. In the past, I have found that a little bit difficult, but hopefully it'll work out. Okay, so your due date, August 28th, Friday by midnight. You can see the discussion board post. You guys have worked discussion boards in the past. Just simply, I'll put the discussion there, board there. Just simply tell us about yourself. Um, uh, Say something about your history as a pre-service teacher and or some sort of teacher, because many people who are undergrads have done some sort of teaching of some sort. What are your goals in this program? Something about your background. Um, and I'm going to post a little bit of a video up there too to give you a little bit of a history about myself too, a little bit of my background. I'm not going to do this in the syllabus introduction because it's possible that you guys might want to watch and rewatch this syllabus just for the sake of reviewing what are the requirements. And so I'm going to be very specific in this recording to what's on the syllabus. I'm going to do a separate separate video where I talk some about myself that goes along with this. Okay, so for September 4th, again, all assignments Friday by midnight. If you can't make the Friday by midnight deadline for a given week, please get in touch with me so that I don't decrease your grade by 10%. We're going to have a little bit of an introduction to curriculum and planning. I'm going to post some material up there for you to work with. Your material will be provided, of course, by me. Your assignment by September 4th is to read chapters 1 and 2 in the Smagorinsky text, Students' Ways of Knowing, as well as providing scaffolds for student learning. I'm likely going to post additionally an article that I've written that goes along with understanding what is scaffolding of instruction. I'm not going to be assigning a chapter review for this one, so I'll just simply do a discussion board post for chapters 1 and 2. And when I post the supplemental materials, such as an article that I've written on scaffolding, go ahead and include that in your discussion board too. I prefer the discussion boards to be lively. Notice that I give you some leniency about choices of what you could talk about. For instance, here's something new I learned, or I never thought about that, or here's something more I want you to learn. I do encourage you guys to talk with each other. Your discussion boards, I'm a believer in completion grades on discussion boards, meaning that I don't have a rubric to them, I don't dock you. To be very honest, it's depending on how many students are in this class. It seems like a fairly decent sized number of students in this class. When I took on the role, I'm probably not going to count, okay, student number 1, let's go through the discussion board. It would take me an hour to do that. So I am going to give you credit for the discussion board posts. If you see me give you credit For a discussion board post in your grade on Blackboard, and you didn't actually post a discussion board, just count yourself lucky. Don't count on that every time because I'm going to try to catch who's making discussion boards and who's not. But these are basically easy grades to complete. I'm going to check the discussion board. I'm occasionally going to respond. I'm not necessarily going to spend 2 hours on the discussion board every week, but I will spend some time on the discussion board. I am varying. Some weeks I do discussion boards, some weeks I do chapter responses. That's for a reason. Some of you will find that you enjoy the discussion board more, and that the discussion board actually stimulates you intellectually to think about the material in more lively ways more than a chapter response does. Some of you will find that the act of doing a systematic and thoughtful, reflective chapter response helps you to understand the material a little bit better. Because every student in this class learns a little bit differently, I'm going to vary it from week to week. And some of you will hopefully benefit from that. One thing I've tried very carefully, because I am aware that there's a lot to do in this course, is I'm trying not to overload you. On weeks when I have a chapter response, I'm generally speaking not having a discussion board. And on weeks when I have a discussion board, generally speaking, I'm not doing a chapter response. That way you guys don't get overloaded. And on weeks when I have major assignments due, I'm not having a chapter response. Along with that, I've got a discussion board instead. That way you guys don't get overloaded, because this is a hard-working class. And there is, if you don't keep up, there is a strong possibility that you could find yourself falling behind fast when things start to get due. Okay, for September 18th. By then, we're getting into teaching of composition, conventional assignments, unconventional assessments, responding to student compositions. And again, I consider this valuable not just for the English teachers, but for all of you. Remember, if you're teaching science, even math, your students need to be writing. And so, for instance, with math, it benefits students to be writing about math in order to conceptually understand math. And so no matter what subject you teach, this is going to be valuable material. And you can see the chapter response for September 18th. It's going to be due. September 25th, we get into chapters 7 and 8 in Smagorinsky. That's conceptual units as well as basic unit of instruction. Chapter 3, we get into, with Ainsworth and Donovan, we get into the assignment standards. Notice that I'm trying to line up what you read with Smagorinsky with Ainsworth and Donovan. These texts go hand in hand with each other. Ainsworth and Donovan is more along the line of what a principal would typically expect. Smagorinsky is more of a researcher and theoretician type approach to conceptual unit of instruction. Smagorinsky is one of the major names in the field of research, especially Vygotsky and social constructive active forms of research. Again, he's one of my personal mentors, actually. So they both serve their own purpose and they both balance each other out. Sometimes I feel like Smagorinsky is almost a little bit too theoretical for undergraduate students, even though this textbook is aimed at undergrads. And sometimes I feel like, and so Ainsworth and Donovan balances Smagorinsky out a little bit. In Ainsworth and Donovan, sometimes I feel like they're not theoretical enough. Sometimes they're not creative enough. Sometimes they're not intellectual enough. And so Smagorinsky gives you more of an intellectual look into what we're talking about. And I think that's a really nice balance for you. Okay, so October 2nd, we get into more of unit rationale, outlining of a unit. I want you to study Chapter 9, the unit rationale of Smagorinsky very, very closely. And let's face it, I'm aware that there will be some chapters that some of you might skim a little bit if you get busy. I've been a student too, I know you do that. Not you personally, maybe some of you don't, but many students do, and I'll be honest, sometimes I've skimmed at times in my past. But chapter 9 is a chapter of Smagorinsky that you absolutely do not want to skim. I'm a strong believer that when you do something, including a lesson plan or a unit of instruction. I want to know why. I don't just want to know what. Um, and the rationale gets into the why. You need to have a purpose behind your lesson planning, and you need to have a purpose behind your curriculum design. Otherwise, you're nothing more than one of those teachers that goes on some online site, such as one of those teachers pay teachers online sites, and copy down material without any real thought to it, and just simply um, hand students some copy pasted lesson plan that you found online. That's not the type of teacher that you want to be. But the way that you avoid becoming that type of teacher is that you know the why behind your instruction, not just the what. Okay, so we'll also get into chapter 4 of Ainsworth and Donovan, the pacing calendar. That's very important. Knowing what you're going to teach, when you're going to teach it, and why you're going to teach it is very important. And by October 2nd, I want to see a rough draft of what assessments you're going to be doing for your units of instruction. I grade rough drafts as a completion grade. And that means you're not going to be deducted any points, even if there's room for improvement on the assessments. And what I mean by the assessment project is basically nothing more than here are the assessments that I tend to use, that I prefer to use. You can create your own assessments, or this being an undergraduate class, it's okay to use a pre-prepared assessment by someone else, whether it was an assessment that I've created in one of the articles by me that you'll read as a supplement, or because again, you will have supplementary reading material in addition to these assigned must-read materials. I'm going to provide you with lots of supplementary material too, to help you out. So whether it is an assessment that someone else has been creating or an assessment that you've created, show me these assessments. It should be enough assessment to determine that for 1 week of instruction, your students are learning. So on a Monday, you might have a pre-test, for instance. At the end of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, you might have a checkout type of assessment. And then on Friday, you might have a post-test. That's an easy way of doing assessments, and boom, you're in good shape for that assessment project. Write me up a quick little write-up about why you're doing these assessments. What's the purpose behind these assessments? How will they measure student learning? That's the writing part of this. And boom, you're in good shape for that assessment project. You can see we've also got a discussion board due that week. October 9th, we get into chapters 11. For the week of October 9th, we get into setting up the construction zone as well as introductory activities, unit planning, as well as deciding where to start. What I mean by a construction zone, and this is basically a metaphor that Smagorinsky uses, think of your unit design as kind of like a house. That students are going to live in during the time that they are your students. A house is going to have chairs, windows. Think of those as metaphors for what students do. Your house is going to contain walls, windows. Again, these are all metaphors for the tools that you will use to set up the learning environment in your classroom. Your learning environment in the classroom is the equivalent of the house for the students. A hammer is the equivalent of your teaching methods. Now, of course, as the saying goes, if the only tool you ever use is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. Ideally, you want to have multiple tools, in other words, multiple teaching strategies that you use in order to teach the students. So that's what Smagorinsky means by a construction zone. Think of teaching and learning as this active construction that's based upon the assumption that a student learning is an active constructive process, not just a passive process. October 16th, we get into the planning of instruction, your study of standards and assessments. I also, along with this week, I want you to be studying the Arkansas State standards as well, the Arkansas State frameworks, especially the sections of the frameworks that are specific to your content area. Science, I want you to study the science portion of the Arkansas State frameworks because, yes, all 5 of your lesson plans need to show how they are linked and how they meet Arkansas State standards. October 23rd, we get into your rough draft of your unit rationale is due. Only a rough draft, so that means if you turn in something, even if it's a little bit sloppy, even if there's a lot of more work to do, I still give you a completion grade. I don't grade rough drafts by a unit, by rubric rather. You can see that we get into how to teach stressed out students under stressed out circumstances. Sounds like what a lot of teachers are dealing with right now with COVID-19, as well as engaging learning experiences, as well as instructional strategies. October 30th, you've got a rough draft of your assessments that comes due. We'll get into chapter 15 of Smagorinsky, instruction as under stressful circumstances, as well as implementing unit planning. You can see your discussion board post. November 6th, toward the end of class, we get into reflective practice and performance assessment. And then I'm leaving November 13th and 20th a little bit open. I'm going to post supplementary material on those days. But by then, I want you to really focus on nailing down your unit of instruction. I'm going to make sure that you have time to complete your major projects during this time. Okay, so you can see an article that I've written will be due there. Your strategy resource file will be due on by the end of the course, November 27th. And at this point, you can see the attendance withdrawal, academic integrity, this sort of thing you all know. Inclement weather policy. I had a little statement about what I mean by diversity. And here I go into Performance Expectations Guide for your conceptual unit of instruction. Please study this carefully. Print it out separately from the syllabus if you want to. This is going to be very helpful for you as you design your unit of instruction, because I try to walk you through how to do each and every part of your conceptual unit. As you can see here with the rationale, if you follow this into the rationale, I want you to consider, for instance, what strategies you're going to be using, if you're talking about a certain theme or time period. For instance, if you're teaching history, what time period, if you're a social studies teacher, that sort of thing. Why are you choosing this? What will students gain from this? What learning goals are there? Those are the sort of things I want to be in your rationale. Think of this right here as basically a checklist for you to use as you write your 100-point rationale. And ideally, your rationale should guide you as you do your lesson plans. Then, of course, we get into the lesson plans. Your overall lesson, I'll have a 100-point value for every lesson plan just by itself. And you'll see a rubric later on in the syllabus for that. You should have the instructional objectives there. They should be written according to Bloom's taxonomy, which we'll study further in this course. They should meet Arkansas State standards. And I should see the language arts connected with your subject material, reading, writing, speaking, listening, viewing, no matter what subject material you test with. Assessment is going to be a component for 100 points. Your objectives need to be tied to assessment. Whatever you say that students are going to be learning, I need to be able to see how you are going to be measuring whether students are meeting learning goals or not. They need to be clear. They need to be concrete, measurable, actionable. And you can see, provide students with a clear set of parameters. Students need to understand how they are being tested. Your assessment should include a very general task for students to do, and they should be tied to certain stated objectives. And there should be at least one rubric contained within your unit of instruction. It's okay if you use a rubric that someone else has designed, given the fact that you are undergrads. For your lesson plans, again, I give you some criteria here for what you can do. That includes activities. What will students be doing? Are they interactive? Do they include a manipulation of ideas and objectives? Again, just use this as a checklist for yourself. What text are students going to be using? How will students be showing performance? Are they going to be using language? Are they going to be drawing, for instance? What composition will students be doing? Will they be writing essays or performing a drama? Are they going to get into digital storytelling, possibly? Will they get into problem-based learning? We'll learn some about problem-based learning as we get further into this course. So again, you can see with that, your lesson plan outline, I give you a general outline here. I'm also giving you a link to the Arkansas Curriculum Framework so you can follow your standards. I'm not going to read through this because that would take a very long time. But again, please study this carefully. This will walk you through what you're expected to do in this course for your objectives and your lesson plans. Your materials. Again, think ahead of time very concretely. What material will you need? What will you have students be doing? And again, I'll go over this in more detail as we go along for this course. You can see your lesson plan rubric. I've tried to let you see exactly how you're going to be graded for everything that you're graded in this course. So use this lesson plan rubric to guide you when you create your lesson plans. You can see your instructional objectives. I give you good guidance here for using instructional objectives. This is tied to Bloom's taxonomy. We are going to be studying Bloom's taxonomy in this course. And you can see more about Bloom's taxonomy and action verbs you can use in your lesson plans that goes along with Bloom's taxonomy. And you can see more about Bloom's here with the affective domain that deals with emotions, psychomotor, which deals with movement, cognitive, which deals with logical thought. And again, your rubric for your responses is provided here too. Okay, so, and you can look through the rest of the syllabus on your own. The rest is pretty much self-explanatory. Hopefully that helped, and hopefully you enjoy this course. Have a good day.